Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Mark Parham. I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in this video we're going to be going through a little bit of my journey. So we're going to be starting with a little bit of a blank board. I'll be talking about my first property investment. I'm going to tell you how I scaled from 1 to today having 12 with a 13th on the way, and how we've gone from having a property portfolio quite a while ago with £175,000 value to today having over 2.5 million. So before we get into the video and before we get into my journey, if you could subscribe and like this video if you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out there, I'd be most appreciative. As I've said in my previous videos, before I get to 1,000 subscribers, if anybody wants a one-to-one consultation with me or conversation, please look into the description. There'll be an email address in there. If you send an email through, I'll book a call with you and we can go through whatever you'd like to talk about. So let's get into the video and let's get into my journey. So my very first property investment, like so many people's, was my home. So I actually ended up purchasing a property in 2010. And this was over we wanted to live in Canary Wharf at the time, but we couldn't afford anything more than a studio apartment. So we decided to buy a 3-bedroom house in Erith, which was a little bit out of central London, but allowed me a reasonable commute into work. At the time I was working in recruitment. So we ended up with a 3-bedroom house, and we paid £175,000 for this. It was a bank repossession. I remember it well because the toilet had a big "please do not open" sign on it, and the shower was a big X on it. It looked like it was contaminated. But this was 2010, and the property market was reaching major lows, especially in London. So a lot of people around us were saying this might not be a good time to buy, but we really wanted to purchase a home. And my property journey really starts and finishes there for a long, long time. We lived in that home, we upgraded it slowly, and 5 years later we moved out. And when we moved out, we decided that we would buy down in Oxfordshire because I had some business opportunities. I was joining my best friend on his business, which was a taxi company, and we scaled that business over the next 5 years. But my property journey really stopped here. And I purchased a property in Oxfordshire for 400k. And I rented this property out, and I converted the mortgage from a standard residential mortgage, and I got what's known as a consent to let. I had a 5-year fixed on it, so I wasn't able to refinance it for another 2 years, I think, at this point. And I wasn't really looking at the value of it, to be honest. With hindsight, this was an error. There was a lot of money stored up in here, and I wasn't accessing it. So anyway, fast forward, it's now 2015. I purchased my house, I've moved to London, I've rented this house out, and I'm getting, I think, £1,100 a month, and the mortgage is at about £700 a month. I'm quite happy with that deal, and I build the business. So for the next 3 years, I'm just building business. I'm not looking at property at all. And in 2018, I started looking into property investing. And I decided that I would release some equity from our first property in Erith. And we released, I think at the time, it was 325,000 was the new value. And I couldn't believe it went over, well, it wasn't over, it was nearly 100k. I think it was 98,000 or something like that, hit my bank account when we refinanced it. It was incredible. For the whole period, we had the same tenant. We didn't up the rent. We didn't change any other variables. But the new value of this, 325, which is what, £150,000 increase? Almost double in 8 years? That's incredible. 100k hit my bank account, and we decided that we would start purchasing new properties. So we bought one up in Sheffield. And I'm going to do a video on that. That really sort of changed my mindset on purchasing cheaper houses, because we paid 100k for that, and that was sourced by a different company. They helped me get through and work out how to purchase it, how to manage it externally. And then we just went on to do more smaller deals. So we bought one in Northampton, we bought one in Kettering, and we started recycling our money. And you fast forward a little bit, our property we purchased in Oxfordshire, this became worth 475,000 and released another, I think it released about 85,000 on this because we put down such a big deposit when we purchased it. So I just wanted to show you on this video just how much things changed. And if I just take it back to that one property in 2010, which we purchased for 175,000, in 2020, i.e. this year, we refinanced that for 375,000, which means we've made over 200k in this area, in this time. I mean, that is a 10-year period, but that's £20,000 a year over that period. And I just think that's phenomenal. And that is time in the market. It's not timing the market, it's just time in the market. We could have bought it a year earlier or a year later. It would have made very little difference. So that really highlights just how much a bit of time in the market can supercharge your property journey. And if we look back and if we had just thought of, actually in 2012, when that property was worth 225,000, if we'd have released 50k then, we could have purchased this house then, we would have been so further on now. I think at the moment we've got 12 properties. Looking back, we could probably be on 30, 40 properties by now. So yeah, leverage is important in property. I've learnt that. And I wouldn't want you to make the same mistake. The other mistake we've made, you know, talking about mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes, is a lot of our companies are in our properties, a lot of our properties are in our personal name. And that's because Section 24, I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. So we started purchasing investment properties, and some of them quite expensive, in our personal name. And now it's at the point where it would just be so expensive to move them over into a limited company. It's not worth doing. But at the same time, I highly, highly, highly regret not getting better advice at the time, not going out and seeking information from people, and not being maybe more open-minded to the opportunities of looking at limited companies. So, with hindsight, it's easy to say limited companies would have been a better way for us, and I'll do another video on the benefits of limited companies. But you know, that's our journey. You know, myself and my wife. Hopefully, that's of interest to you, and it gives you an idea of what's happened in my life. We've taken basically an investment here, and we've scaled and scaled and scaled and scaled, and as the properties have gone up in value, we've refinanced, and that's given us access to more and more capital. And at this point, we've got 12 properties, as I said, £2.5+ million worth, and a decent rent roll coming off that with a good ROI. So yeah, that's a little bit of this journey. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, if you'd like to tell me about your journey so far, please put that in the comments. Please subscribe, please like this video. Hopefully I'm being nice and transparent about everything. I apologise about the terrible whiteboard stuff. My wife normally writes it and she's much neater than I am. But I wanted to go a bit freehand so that I could explain as we went along all the different aspects. Anyway, we'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much. I'm Mark. Thank you.